Mets sweep the Yankees in 4. Stunning development in New York baseball. The Heat push the Pacers to the brink of elimination, up 3-2. Rod Baker, special guest for us here at the Three Wise Men of the Bakersfield Jam when we return. Good morning, Montclair. Dennis D'Addario, Dennis from Yonkers. Mike Goldstein, the hometown hero, Mike from Montclair. The Three Wise Men, down from 3, up from 1 from last week. Hopefully our buddy Arenado rejoins us next week, so we are the Three Wise Men again. Big development in sports this week in the New York area. The New York Mets sweep the Yankees in 4. First time ever that the Mets have won a season series from the Yankees, knocking the first place overachieving Yanks out. Mr. Yankee fan, what do you have to say about that? Well, first of all, on the first 50 games, Yankees, let me hear your take on that, and then on the 4-game sweep of the Mets.
Well, first of all, let's hope Aldo's come back next
year. Yeah, he will be back next week.
Because we need somebody sitting in the catbird seat.
I appreciate that.
Right? Second of all, you know, it's 160 games. Shocking, yes.
162.
162 games. Shocking, yes. But the Yankees, everyone knew going in, had some warts.
All right, but what was your take on the first 50? Were you pleasantly surprised, I guess?
I honestly thought the guys like Hafner and Wells and Overbay, I didn't know that they were overachieving. I thought these guys could continue this throughout the season. Now, Hafner is still hitting the ball pretty well. Overbay is still hitting the ball pretty well. Wells has got into a complete funk, which surprised me because I didn't think that would happen. But listen, the Mets played 4 good games. The Yankees did not play 4 good games, thus you have the result. But, yeah, I think I'm a little shocked. And actually, it's not a sweep. It's 2 separate sweeps.
It's 2 separate sweeps. What baseball did was, with the interleague mess, they put all what they call natural rivalries. Most of them aren't, but you have a few. You have the Yankees, Mets, Dodgers, Angels, Giants, A's, a couple of the Cubs, White Sox. And they
Royals?
Cardinals, Royals, I-70. They play 2-2, and yeah, it's I guess a good idea for 4 games. It's a weird setup, but it ends up being a 4-game series, 2 in one stadium, 2 in the other. I'll tell you how dominant this was. Here's a stat that really knocked me out. Over the last 3 games, Met pitchers walked 0 batters, struck out 34. It's by 8 strikeouts, the most since 1900 that has ever happened in a 3-game series. It was 0-28. That is unbelievable. And when you think of the fact that Dylan G, I know he's going against a depleted lineup, but when you think of the fact that Dylan G, career high strikeouts was 9, he was mowing the Yankees down. I think he knocked down the last 18, 19 in a row. It was just the dominance of the whole thing that it felt like, you know, the Yankees were always climbing Mount Everest and playing behind the 8 ball through the 4 days, and everyone expected it to be the exact opposite.
He did, and Teixeira's back tonight. Euclid is back tonight,
right.
So they're going to have a little more pop in the lineup. The Yankees, listen, everyone thought at the beginning of the year the Yankees were going to win somewhere between 80 and 85 games.
I said 87.
It depended on where you were. Okay, I actually thought they were going to win north of 90. I still think they're going to win north of 90. Do I think they're going to win 95? No, but I think they'll win 91 or 92. I still think they're on that pace. This is, you know,
got to be concerned about Sabathia.
Because his velocity's down, but he knows how to pitch. The Yankees, every team in every baseball season goes through a patch where they'll lose 4 or 5 in a row. Every team. Maybe this is the Yankee patch.
Yeah,
they just happened to come against the Mets.
That's the problem. I mean, and would you, if your idol, the boss, was alive today, we would have some fun in New York.
Well, I still
he would have been sending missives off left and right.
You know, the other night, albeit it was late in the game, you had a picture from behind home plate of Paul Simon sitting there along with Lorne Michaels, Jimmy Fallon, and the ex-mayor Rudy Giuliani. So they were sitting there right behind home plate, and there wasn't another soul around them. And that's why I think the boss would be rolling over in his grave. It's just a terrible vision of Yankee Stadium when you get the camera angle from behind the pitcher and you look at all those seats behind the plate and they're empty.
All right, do you make any
game in and game out?
But they had 44,000 at least announced. Do you make anything of the fact? What do you make of the fact that they were 32 and 31 the first 2 games in Citi Field? First, by far the lowest crowds ever for the Subway Series, 10,000 short of capacity.
There's 2 things. Both teams have outpriced their fans. Okay,
Agreed.
that's number 1. And number two, if they are selling the tickets and the fans are in the clubs and not in the seats, that's another issue.
So you think they're back eating the freebies?
I think there's a percentage of them back eating the freebies, and I think there's a percentage of the fans that just aren't coming because they don't want to spend a couple $100 a seat. And either way, I think Steinbrenner, who, listen, he, like everyone else, loved money.
But wouldn't you love him
what
to be
he
alive
loved-
today after this
but
one?
what I think would disturb him is the vision of his stadium with empty seats.
That might not have been the situation. You know him. He would have figured out a way to get those seats filled. He would have paid people to sit in those seats. He would have hired people to go sit in those seats.
And the idea that he would have
seat fillers.
The idea that he would have overreacted to these 4 games it's mythical. That's all it is. I don't know that he would or
He would have blown a gasket somewhere along the way, Mike.
Somewhere maybe internally he might have.
Mike.
But it's a long season, Denny.
Mike, that 5-run first the other night would have sent him through the roof.
There's 2/3 of the season to go. I think what happens this weekend against the Boston Red Sox is ultimately a lot more important than what just happened this week against the Mets. Clearly.
It is, no question. I heard somebody say this was more important to the Mets than beating the Braves. No, beating the Braves has got to be more important to the Mets.
No, it's not. I'll tell you why. The Mets are not in a position where they're going to challenge.
But they can't, even in spite of their owners' comments.
This is about holding your head up high for the Mets. This is about getting some.
They had to get some wins.
Some semblance of respect.
It started with a comeback win over the Braves, by the way.
But so I don't think it's the same. The Yankees are going to go head-to-head against the Red Sox and probably the Orioles, and if Tampa Bay ever comes down against those teams, the Yanks are competing for a division. They're competing for a pennant. The Mets will not be in that position. So for this, with the Mets,
but the Mets can't think that way. They don't think that way. The Mets' goal right now is get to 500.
Players don't think that way. Players think they can win every game when they walk on the
And
field.
they don't want to go down to Miami now and play the worst team in baseball by far. And they want to go down there and just keep rolling.
Yeah.
And that's important for them. Interestingly,
but you can see them going down and getting swept, can't you?
I can't see them getting swept. Miami's horrible. Miami's bad. If that happens, they should. I mean, they got to come out of there with 2 out of 3. Keep their momentum rolling. I mean, you're right. You're more than right. The Mets are a 75-win team going forward.
It's about respect.
It's a big deal. Mets. But still, the most important games and why people – I like the fact they reduced it at least to 4, that they've reduced these interleagues to 4. But there's interleague every day anyway.
Yeah.
So the whole thing's kind of screwed up schedule-wise.
For those who didn't like the interleague every day, and I'm not saying I like it. I'm not even aware of it most of the time, the fact that there's always 2 teams crossing over.
Right.
But what was the alternative? Why was
there is none.
There wasn't. Because you had one division that had 6 teams in it. You have one division that has 4 teams in it.
Getting 15 apiece was important. You're going to have interleague.
It was unfair competitively. And ultimately, that's what sport's about. It's fair competition. And it wasn't fair to the division or the teams that had to beat out 5 other teams.
And you didn't think it was fair in St. Louis last night. That game ended at Royals came up with 3 in the 9th. It rained so hard you couldn't see the field through the cameras. They held it up for 4 hours and 32 minutes to play 12 minutes.
Not everybody was idiotic enough to stay up that late.
Like I was.
Just quickly what happened.
Royals got 3 in the 9th. They held it up for 4 hours and 32 minutes. They could have called it after 8 because it was the last game of a series. Joe West held the game up for 4:32. There were about 100 people left in the stadium. 12 minutes to get the last 3 outs. Royals win 4-2.
Joe West should be fired. He manipulated the result of that game because baseball has, in its rules, you can end a game after 4.5 innings if there is a weather issue.
And when we come back, Coach Rod Baker joins us, NBA Talk, with the 3 wise men right after this. We're back, the 3 wise men, 2 this week, 3 next week, with head coach Rod Baker of the Bakersfield Jam, D-League team for the NBA. Coach, nice to have you here.
Thank you, guys.
Lots been happening in basketball. I mean, the NBA playoffs going on, but locally or in the more local area, Rutgers University has been going through just a complete, I don't know what to call it, a mess. Mike Rice, the video comes out of him abusing players during practice, along with assistant coach Martelli, son of Phil Martelli, the head coach of St. Joe's. That ends up in Rice's firing. The AD ends up resigning. They hire a new AD. That has become a fiasco in that she wasn't vetted properly. Your resume is remarkable. You were an assistant at Brown, assistant at Columbia, assistant at St. Joe's, head coach at Tufts, assistant at Seton Hall, head coach at UCI, where we just spoke. I watched you on midnight television, I call it, on ESPN a lot. An assistant at Cincinnati and an assistant at Rutgers as recently as 2001. So you've been in countless practices, I guess thousands.
Sure.
Give me your take on what you saw. I'm sure you saw the videotape. Give me your take on what the mindset of a coach is, whether it's discipline, whether it's getting things done in practice, accomplishing stuff. What a practice is supposed to be like at a Division I university.
Well, I mean, everybody's different, and I've seen them all. I played for George Blaney, who was more of a teacher. More he wanted to explain things and slowly. I coached with the great Joe Mulaney,
right,
who was probably the best game coach I've ever seen. And I also work with Bob Huggins, who is a fiery individual.
Tough guy, I guess.
Okay,
right?
But whenever I see that tape, and obviously I'm hoping that's just the highlights that we saw, and there were days when everything was calm and collected.
Hopefully most days. Yeah.
But you know what? If I'm the parent of any one of those guys,
right,
I don't think when they came in to recruit my son, they told me that was what it was going to be like, and
that's really key.
That's the part where, it's
because when you're a coach and you're recruiting a player, I mean you're selling the parents on your program as much as you're selling the kids. I mean they love their kid and they want their kid to be okay, and they're giving him to your care.
Right, and we always, any situation I've always been, we've always told parents that I'm going to do everything within my power to send them back to you better than how you sent them to me.
Right.
And that didn't happen during the Mike Rice. A very good friend of mine, son was there, and he left because of that type of behavior.
Right.
And it was just, and the thing that bothered me as much, you saw it, and it was red hot when you saw it in those clips. But it was constant. Right. It was all day, every game, every practice. There was that level of anger over a game.
Now, full disclosure, I know Mike going back to 85, 86 when he was being recruited at Fordham. I went to Fordham, and I actually I met him and took him around a little bit on the campus. He was Nick McCartrick's first recruit. He'd always been, a fiery type guy when he played. And you knew at Robert Morris. You saw some of the stuff at Robert Morris on the sidelines. Rutgers knew what they were getting. When you were an assistant at Rutgers, what was the mindset toward the basketball program? I mean, it couldn't have been. It had to be. I'm assuming this was not a behavior that was tolerated at Rutgers.
Didn't you work under Kevin Bannon?
You were under Kevin Bannon.
Kevin Bannon.
And there were issues there. But I'm assuming, even though we have a pattern here, that had to be addressed back then as well.
Well, I mean, it was never, I was only there for a year, and it was never a situation where, that was a problem. There was never that type of interaction between coaches and players.
I don't know, for lack of a better way to put it, the stripping down the underwear thing or whatever?
That was before my time.
That was before your time.
That was before my time.
Wait, so that was before your time, but when he was there, he stayed after that happened?
Yes.
Oh, I remember. I thought he got fired.
Oh, then let me ask it another way, Coach. Am I just being naive, or has there been a pervasive atmosphere at Rutgers to allow this to happen? I mean, there's some kind of pattern going on here. And granted, it's their coaches. There was a coach in between, Fred Hill, but still, I mean, we're talking
two coaches in between because Gary
two
Waters
coaches,
was there too.
right? Gary Williams was there as well.
But here's the problem. You have two very difficult pressures hitting you on a daily basis. One, you're behind football, and football is king on that campus, and so you're constantly fighting that battle. Secondly, actually three.
But that's not an excuse.
No.
Yeah.
Secondly, you're in the former Big East,
Right.
and an afterthought in the Big East.
Right.
Supposedly, one of the reasons why Rutgers was in the Big East is because the media market that it's in, and how that's supposed to turn into money,
Right.
and it wasn't. And then thirdly, you're constantly battling Seton Hall, in-state, right down the road
Right.
piece. And so all of those things are forcing you day in and day out to put pressure on yourself, and I think to put pressure on your players.
But there's a right way. There's a right way to
Without
do it, and there's a
question.
wrong way to do it.
Without question.
I guess the question now is, whoever's making the call at Rutgers. There's been listen. It's not the same people, but by the same token, it's almost like maybe it's the governing board. I don't know. Maybe they remain the same, and they've allowed this to happen. But it's clear, and I felt, knowing Mike and being a friend of Mike's, I felt terrible watching it. But you can't condone it. I mean, there's nothing to condone about it. There's nothing to condone about what Kevin Bannon did.
No.
Now we have two coaches, as you said, over a 4-coach span.
Oh, you also have a third that you're not mentioning, Fred Hill.
Fred Hill had
Who was
problems there as well.
Was a whack job
You know,
himself there.
so I mean, now they move to the higher profile Big Ten,
Right.
and regardless of who they hire as coach, the point of the matter is, it seems like the whole mindset has to change a little bit at Rutgers to get this thing right, and they haven't helped themselves with the hiring of the new AD because she apparently hasn't been vetted properly.
Well, here's the thing that I don't get. They need to, everybody's jumping at the president. The president needs to be removed. But if I'm the president there, I'm crushing the people who I use as advisors.
Yeah.
Because you really, honestly and truly, the president probably should have known, but he's got a couple other things probably on his plate, other than who's the next AD.
He's academics, fundraising.
Right. He's got a lot more to worry about than who the next AD is. But I'll be damned if I'm going to allow the people, like if you guys I'm the AD and you guys are working for me, I'm going to turn to you and go, give me your take on this. What should I do? This is your job. You've done all of this. And if you told me, yeah, she's okay, well, then you two are gone.
Oh, you've been.
And how do you know that hasn't happened, though? I mean, would you necessarily know if the president got rid of some of the people that he leans on?
Sure.
That would be public.
Absolutely.
Oh,
because the people would say something, because they'd rebel against it and they'd leak it to someone.
Leak it, right.
Yeah, you would know.
We've got about a minute left of this segment. You've been an assistant in a number of places, as I just recounted. Eric Murdoch's behavior out of line?
Yes.
In what regard?
Well,
Is he a rat?
there's a lack of loyalty coming from both directions. I guess what I've heard is that Eric may have been trying to sell that tape for a long time, and used it as if you don't let me keep my job, or if you don't give me
The money he wanted.
the money that I want, then it's coming out.
He wasn't doing it in the interest of the kids. He was doing it in the interest of Eric Murdoch.
Here's the thing. That thing went on for a long time before this tape came out. Which day did he step up and say, hey, what, coach, this isn't good?
Hey, I want to find out. I want to hear something about the D League. I want to know. I want to know what that's about when we get back in this next segment, and I want to hear Coach's perspective on the NBA playoffs, which are coming down to cases. Heat one game away from the finals again. Spurs sleepwalk to the finals, and we'll do that when the Wise Men return right after this.
Live with a human for a while and you get to know a few things. Like, I know she's actually not a morning person. I know she does strange tricks for no treats. I know that water makes her howl like crazy. I even know how the floor stays so clean. She's quick. But the one thing I will never for the life of me know is how she gets so tiny and inside that box. Natalie, how do you get so tiny?
Welcome back, the Three Wise Men, with Coach Rod Baker of the Bakersfield Jam, doing our weekly show in Montclair. But you have a rider to read, right?
A rider.
Yeah.
No, this Tuesday night, June 4th, I'm going to be at Egan's & Sons on Walnut Street.
This is the cause celeb of Montclair, folks.
Well,
He's
they're
everywhere.
trying to raise money for
Good
the
cause.
Fourth
Yep.
listen, we're a local show.
Good
We're
cause.
trying to raise
Right.
money for the 4th of July parade, the picnic, the fireworks.
Good deal.
These things cost money, Denny.
I know that.
So,
Well, Mike, I figured you just go into your pocket and just fund the whole
They
thing.
have a bunch of local people coming in to bartend at Egan's from 5 to 10 at night this coming Tuesday night. All the money and all the proceeds that night will go towards the 4th of July parade, picnic, and fireworks. So if you're around this Tuesday, come by, buy a beer, and you'll be helping out a good cause.
Good spot. I like it. Coach, back to first of all, you're the head coach of the Bakersfield Jam D League. Explain what the purpose of the D League is in the NBA.
Well, the D League,
In relation to the NBA, I should say.
the D League is a training ground for players, coaches, front office people, trainers, referees. Like for instance, referees come into the D League for a 4-year period.
Right.
If they can't get promoted to the NBA, they're let go.
I see.
So it's an opportunity for everybody to get quote unquote game experience.
Fair to say it's the minors of the NBA?
You
Well,
would
it is the minors.
you would say
Like-
you would say it was the AAA
AAA.
of the NBA.
So the referees, that's fascinating. The referees are in a 4-year tryout.
Yes.
And so it's either they make it or it's the highway for them. They don't get to hang around.
Nope.
Players can hang around.
Not too long.
Coaches?
Not too long.
Okay.
You know, I mean, it's.
So your end game for Rod Baker is to land on an NBA team as an assistant somewhere.
That would be my hope.
And when you say not too long, what does not too long mean for Rod Baker? This is your first year doing this?
Yes.
So what is the lifespan for Rod Baker in the D League?
Well, you know, the same as the lifespan for Rod Baker. Period. You know, I don't want to do this. I'd say that I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. But I probably will end up doing it for the rest of my life because I enjoy it.
Right.
But you know, 3-4 years maybe.
Right. This is so you end up on the Toronto Raptors, the New York Knicks, the Bulls, anywhere that
Somewhere.
you can
Yep.
land a job next to a head coach.
Sure.
Fascinating.
Which is a good deal. What percentage of the players get to the NBA from D League, would you say?
There was some ridiculous number of transport back and forth. 140, 150 players went back and forth between
Is that
the
right?
NBA and the D League.
That many?
especially. Yeah.
I would
and
never guess that high.
Some were multiple guys.
And
guys
what's-
went multiple
well,
times.
give us an idea, Coach. What makes a player? I mean, you see guys play college ball. I'll pick one out, Jimmer Fredette.
Sure.
Okay, look like a terrific college player.
Sure.
Okay, has trouble getting his shot off in the NBA. Has trouble really translating his game to the NBA. What makes a player a terrific college player and not translate to the NBA? And then there are these kids who you don't hear of. I mean, for instance, Neil from Towson, who plays for the Spurs. I
Gary
mean,
Neal.
that kid is really impressive. Yeah, well, I've watched him progress from when he was at Towson to now a solid pro.
Sure.
What's the dynamic there that makes a kid click like that?
First and foremost, it's their athleticism. You know, and you can be a great athlete.
Is that the number one attribute?
Yeah, I mean, it has to. Yeah, because you take a guy like Jimmer Fredette, who led the country in scoring,
Right.
who can't get his shot off.
And that
One-dimensional.
translates to the zig game, the getting the shot off.
Be able to get by people, to be able to create. The thing you have to be able to do, a guy like him, is to create separation.
Right.
Well, if I have no fear of you going by me,
I'm
then
up on you.
I'm there the whole time, and
Right.
he needs separation. You know, so I think
But it's
first and foremost,
fascinating to
it's
watch. Sorry to
athleticism.
interrupt. It's fascinating to watch a kid like Neil develop from a Towson to a solid ball player. And if you're playing for Greg Popovich,
Sure.
You have got your fundamentals down. You can play.
Sure. But
Yeah.
but it's you know, players don't necessarily all get to the highest level in college for a number of different reasons. Some of them could be academic, some of them be where they are. Like for instance, you know, if Scottie Pippen, if you just looked at where Scottie Pippen went to school, Central Arkansas, you know, like you go, well, that a guy at Central Arkansas can't play at the NBA level. Well, obviously that's not true. You know, so it has nothing to do with what school you went to. It has to do with the skill set that you have.
But the number one attribute you would say is athleticism
Sure.
to get.
And kids develop physically and mentally, and they're at different
Sure.
paces.
Sure. They
So
do.
a kid like that, maybe it didn't happen for him right away, but as he went through college, he kept developing, and obviously he's got a Hall of Fame career now.
Let's get your expertise on the NBA playoffs. I'm sure you followed them. Everybody jumps on the Grizzly bandwagon,
Sure.
and you know when that happens, when somebody jumps on an underdog's bandwagon, the bottom's going to fall out. What I took from the Spurs series was this. You heard some of the clips from Tim Duncan. They wanted this more than I think most people realize. They have burned over the fact they haven't been back there in 6 years. It sounded almost like Tim Duncan's swan song, like he's saying, I've got to get back there no matter what.
He's not going to get back there too many more times.
Well, I realize that, but the guy's playing terrific. I mean, he's playing. Popovich done an unbelievable job managing the minutes, and Tony Parker has just been sensational. He's now developed that jump shot to the point where he's just become an impossible cover. Where do you see that? First of all, he closes out in Game 6.
No.
You go 7.
Yes.
Do they win it in 7?
Yes.
I get the sense you like the Pacers, though.
I like the Pacers a lot.
Yeah.
And I think the Pacers sometimes are their own worst enemies.
Because?
They just can't. They have so many tools that they don't know which ones to go to sometimes. You know, I mean, David West can score all the time. Roy Hibbert can score all the time.
Looks that way.
But some nights you need Lance Stevenson, who's a nutcase, but you need him every once in a while to keep everybody else honest. So, you know, I mean, they got to figure out who's going to take over. I think it's going to be very difficult for that group to win Game 7 in Miami.
It's a great point, though, about Hibbert. I mean, Hibbert looks like he can just dominate in the middle against the undersized Heat all day long. They're playing Anderson more now because they've got to deal with the size a little bit, and they just, as you say, stay away from Hibbert. Okay, give the Spurs let's say it's Spurs Heat. Give the Spurs a shot at the Heat.
No question.
Who do you like to win?
Here's the thing. The Grizzlies were very, very good going. The Grizzlies had just beaten the Thunder.
What was their problem against the Spurs? The biggest problem?
Whatever Pop's defensive schemes were, because they could not get Zebo the ball where he could score, and they just frustrated him. They fronted him. It's hard work to try to get yourself a shot when the other team has committed that you're not going to touch the ball. He struggled to get touches. Where the other series, he touched the ball.
And when
all
he
the time.
did, it seemed like he was further out than he wanted to be. Also,
so I mean, they did a great job not allowing the Grizzlies to do what they wanted to do.
what are the Spurs going to do to the Heat as far as hurting them inside?
They're going to match up. They can throw enough guys at LeBron to make him work. Who, by the way, is without question the greatest player on the planet. You know, it's not even
Best you've ever
it's not
seen?
even close.
Can you get in that conversation yet? He's up there. He's in the conversation.
Let him answer the question.
He's in the conversation. But,
Thanks, Mike.
But he's got to get a lot more things done. If everything is going to be determined by championships,
Why is it?
he's got a lot
why
more.
does it have? He asked you a question. Why does it have to be determined by championships?
It's
What if
just-
his supporting cast isn't what Jordan's supporting cast was? Do you think, pound for pound, he's a better basketball player than Michael Jordan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do. But part of being the greatest player
Is
ever
having the resume.
is winning.
And that's part of the
Yes, this
resume.
isn't tennis or golf.
Okay.
Spurs Heat, give it to us.
It's going to take a long time, and I think the Spurs got one more in them.
Wow,
Ooh,
we'll take
you
that.
heard it here.
Coach Rob Baker, thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank
It's
you.
a pleasure having you in and getting your insight. We are the Three Wise Men, and we hope to be the Three Wise Men next week when Arenado rejoins
you have
us.
no idea how much we have.
Oh, please stop. Mike doesn't like me this week because I took over the host role. We will see you next week. Thank you for joining us. Three Wise Men, over and out.